Hey everybody. So today we're going to cook some chili verde, all right? Before we get into the cooking itself, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I wanted to talk about some of the cookware that can be used, and I also wanted to talk to some specifics on some of the ingredients. So in the video that you're about to see, we're going to be cooking the chili verde in a enameled cast iron pot. Heavy duty, great conductor of heat. It's one of my favorites for indoor cooking. Now, the way I really like it and the way the family kind of agrees that it turns out the best, and we don't know completely what the magic is when I cook it outside on my campfire Dutch oven. As you can see, I can't use it inside on the glass stove because of the legs. This is designed to sit on top of coals. And you don't need it for chili, but if you're doing other items like baking, you've got the nice lip here and you actually put coals on top, so it's radiating and baking down as well. Then, if you don't have time and you want to just use a crock pot, works great, works absolutely great. Because what you're going for the final product is, one, you're wanting your pork to be very, very tender, just fall apart in your mouth. You're also wanting to darken the tomatillos and the peppers and bring all those flavors together in the broth. So, on that note, let's talk about the peppers for a minute. What I like to use is hatch chilies. So when hatch chili season comes around, and you can see the big piles of them in the store, I'll buy a bag at a time, bring them home, and then I'll give them a light rinse, give them a light spray with some cooking oil, and I'll literally throw them on the barbecue pit after I've grilled whatever I'm grilling, right? So it tenderizes it, it roasts it, it makes it where the skin puffs up, where you can peel it off real easy, and then you can process them put them in freezer bags. And then you can pull good chilies out year round to add in your dishes. Another thing to note about the hatch chilies is they're not always marked in the grocery stores, but some of them are actually hot. They do have a mild medium version, and then they have a hot version. Now, we actually discovered that one year when it wasn't marked, bought a bunch of chilies, processed them, had them in the freezer, pulled some out, and the dish was incredibly hot. And I mean, like, I had used a lot of really good quality jalapenos. It surprised everybody. Now, for me as a fire eater, I really liked it. Now, it was just a little bit too hot for the family because I'm serious, this was hot. But we'll talk about things you can do if you get a mild or medium, how you can kick that heat up a little bit if you want to, and you still get that good hatch flavor. Of course, you can use poblanos, you can use Anaheims, you can use any pepper you want, but your poblanos, Anaheims, hatches tend to make the best, and traditionally I think you're supposed to use hatch primarily in this particular dish. So with that being said, let's get into the kitchen. Let's cook.
Okay, here are our basic ingredients. We have pork, in this case loin, a brown onion, garlic, 5 to 6 cloves. I got one big clove. All the rest of mine are small, so I've kind of made up for it by having additional smaller cloves. About 1.5 pounds of tomatillos. Husk them, give them a rinse. Cut them in half. Bundle of cilantro. I'll end up using about half of that in the blender. My roasted hatch chili peppers, half a cup of those, a couple of boxes of chicken stock, not broth, chicken stock. Okay, we'll grease a pan. I like to put foil on there, that way it doesn't stick. And just lay your tomatillos on there, and I put it in the oven at about 350. Now your garlic will be done a little sooner. You're just trying to get it where it's mushy and you can squeeze it out of its husk, its shell, the skin. Okay. Spread them out just a little bit, and we'll pop them in the oven. Okay, you can see your garlic is soft now, and we can just squeeze it right out into the blender. Okay, We have a little oil. You're not putting a whole lot of oil in there. In my case, I do like to use olive oil for a lot of my searing. And you can see about how much is in there. Obviously, we've cubed up our pork. You can use shoulder. You can use pork roast. Doesn't matter if there's a little fat in there. I do recommend crushing your own black peppercorns instead of just shaking the pre-ground out. You get a fresher flavor. Also a nice coarse kosher salt. And just giving it a good coating. You add a little bit more after you stir it if you need some more. Now we can see the tomatillos have browned up very, very nicely. They're extremely soft. I've got half my bunch of cilantro. I've got my peppers in there. And I've cut up my whole onion into little pieces. Add my tomatillo. And now I'm adding a little bit broth just to kind of help with the, I said broth, but I do mean stock. Stock just to help with the blending process, all right? Boy, that looks good. Now let's just hit it with the blender a little bit, and this is the consistency that you're looking for. It is going to be a vivid green, almost a neon green. That will tone down as you cook. So now you can see we've got everything seared. We're not going for a brown necessarily, although it is good with brown searing. I've done that before. It does take a little longer to break up. Adding a little bit of stock to my blender to get the rest of the goodies out of there and pour all that in. And then I do like to add a beer. I lean towards ambers and darker beers, not as dark as a stout. That's a little bit too much of a flavor overload, I think, for the Chili Verde, all right? It's gonna be very, very bright. Don't let that scare you. It is going to darken up. It's gonna richen up, but it does take a few hours. So my target time for this particular meal was around 5:30, 6 o'clock. So you can see it is already starting to darken a little bit. Now we got a nice boil going, and that's darkening. You are covering it and then putting it on about medium. Okay, that lid, keeping that lid on there is really what's helping break that meat down and getting it nice and tender as you're about to see. Now you do have to help it a little bit with your spoon. But you can see how that's breaking up really nicely. Now, just a little note on the enameled cast iron. Do use either wooden or plastic implements inside of there. Your metal will end up wearing that enamel down on the inside of your pot over the course of time, yeah? Right, it's looking great now. The smell is just amazing, and there was a steaming bowl. Just a couple of additional comments. You may have noticed on the bag it said 1/4 cup, and in my commentary it said 1/2 cup. I did end up adding a second bag of the hatch chilies because I wanted a little bit richer flavor than just the one bag. Other than that, whatever pork you want to use, a pork roast, a pork shoulder. I like to use loin. It's just, it's leaner, not as much fat in it, but you're not gonna go wrong using any of those, right? I think that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. You can tweak it any way you want. If you want a little bit more heat, throw a jalapeno or a serrano or whatever your favorite hot pepper is on that roasting pan. You'll probably be pulling them off a little bit quicker than the tomatillos because the mass isn't as much, and drop that off in your blender. Guaranteed to add some flavor, guaranteed to add some heat. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, subscribe, share. More's coming. Thanks again.